This is the look behind the curtain. There we go. We are we are live. We are live. All right. So I guess we can effectively get started. We are live. We'll do the
Cool.
official kickoff now that we're live, so we can make this look official.
Yeah, well, people didn't like the opening countdown music, so now we're just jumping right in. We're just like,
We just come up on it like, hey, here we are. Uh, I think it's working everywhere, right? You good
it.
everywhere?
It
I
looks
see.
like it.
Yeah, I see it on YouTube. All right, sweet. Everybody's here. All right, good. All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 10 of the Midlife Pilot podcast, and my name's Chris Moran. I'm the Midlife Pilot on YouTube, joined by co-host also Midlife Pilot for Music Row, Brian Siskind.
Your signal paused there for a minute, and I was thinking I'm going to be left hanging with the strangest looking face, but it finally kicked back around, and I could figure out that you actually finished introducing me. Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I'm just here in Music City. You, meanwhile, are on an island.
I
So let's talk about that.
I'm on an island. I'm on the eastern seaboard of the United States, standing guard against foes abroad, uh, protecting the East Coast. I actually flew in today to our beach house. Well, I didn't. Let me rephrase that. I did not fly into the house. My daughter and I flew to KONX, Currituck Regional Airport on the mainland of North Carolina. So Currituck. It's funny. If you're familiar with the Outer Banks, there's one way onto the island, and Corolla is the town that I'm in. It's the kind of on the northern end of the island, and that's where our house is. From the airport, when we got in the car and I put Google Maps, like that. I mean, I know how to get here, but put it in, and it was like, it's 11 miles, but it takes an hour because it's not really. I mean, you got to go all the way down, uh, almost to Kill Devil Hills, and then back around and all the way back up. We were basically parallel with our house where we landed, but then because there's only one way on the island, you got to go down and
I
back up.
see.
So, yeah, they're working on a bridge. There's actually another bridge that's going to get built. That's going to kind of connect the mainland up to the northern end of the Outer Banks, starting in 2024. It's going to
Is
be a
that just
couple year.
because you guys just got the place there, and so now they're just trying to accommodate you?
Well, that's what we think. We think it had
Yeah.
something to do with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this airport is super nice. It. There are a couple other options on the Outer Banks. You could fly. There is an actual airport down in Manteo, um, Dare County Regional, I think, KMQI. I've actually flown there once at my second ever flying lesson, but man, it's also about an hour from down there all the way back up to this house. So this one
Mm.
was just as easy, and I could get rental cars delivered there and stuff. So it was pretty cool though. We came in right at sunset, and the approach
Awesome.
to the runways over the thing, and yeah, it's pretty neat.
So
Had
how
a good
long was
time
the
with it.
flight? 2.5 or 3 hours, or what was it from
2 hours
from
and
your
5 minutes today.
nice?
Um, it'll be a little longer on the way back just because of the headwind tailwind thing. It was what made this one interesting was we were debating about not doing it because back in West Virginia today there was when I left Fairmont the winds were so it's runway 23. The winds were from 200 at 12 gusting 25, and there was a low level wind shear air met in effect at or below 2,000 feet with changes in wind speed of like greater than 20 knots.
Hmm.
So it was by far and away the most wind that I've flown. And now, if you really component up the crosswind component rate of 200 off of runway 2 was also it wasn't a 24 knot crosswind.
Sure.
but it was enough that it kind of freaked us out, and we were expecting it to be really bumpy. They were calling for a lot of turbulence. I will tell you though, the first 5 or 6 minutes of the flight was a little bumpy as we climbed up. We ended up making the rest of the flight at 9,500 feet, but it was no more than a normal. I mean, it was almost indistinguishable, and so we were really glad we did, because the rest of the flight was, I mean, as perfect as it could have been the rest of the way in.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was fun.
And you don't have to do any weird beelining, or you can beeline it. You don't have to do a lot of weird dodging of all the strange kind of military and restricted areas that are down there, because you're coming from the sort of the north,
That's right.
or you're
That's
going
right.
southeast to it, as opposed like me planning out my route there for next, or for April, is like I'm going to be sort of going down a little bit of a chute when I get to that point. They definitely have all schmucks like us routed into a much tighter area.
Pieces. Sorry, I had a connection problem. We're on an island, as we've said.
Yeah. So, and by the way, for those in the chat, like this is pretty much just kind of an open session. So anybody that wants to ask anything, or not that we really know anything, but we can tell you what we think. We're not instructors. I did see one question in here earlier that was just about switching CFIs that I thought was kind of an interesting one. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. It was let's see. Maybe it's already gone. I think it might have. But essentially, it was just about changing CFIs, and um,
I found it.
yeah.
This is from Mark.
Mm,
I switched CFIs right after my 150 nautical mile cross country solo. Is this the one?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, or
My
maybe it's like
CFI didn't
or
show.
maybe it's a part of that conversation. But yeah, so there was something where it was basically like, why, when would it be? What should I consider about switch? When should I consider switching CFIs, or something along those lines? Um, okay, wait. Yeah. Under what circumstances would you switch CFI? Just switched mine. So it's interesting because I've got a couple of friends that are training right now that have just they haven't soloed yet. They're still in the earlier part of their training. They both had the same CFI that I had for the entirety of my training, but then he just stopped doing kind of people in 172s and that kind of stuff, and now he's really doing just Cirrus and charter work. And so they're kind of left with what do we do kind of thing. And I think it's also an interesting or more challenging thing perhaps for women student pilots, because I think that I don't know. I don't know how to say this without it's coming off wrong, but I think that women have more considerations, that they need to feel good about a lot of things that maybe we don't have to think about as much, in terms of how they relate to their CFI and just feeling comfortable or good or whatever. So it's even more kind of something for them. But ultimately, I was just thinking, how lucky am I suppose, on one level, that I didn't switch CFIs. But I'm also envious of people that flew with multiple CFIs, because you got so much more experience from different points of view, and I think maybe a richer experience. So I can't really say which one is best, to have one or to stay with one or whatever. But for me, I was looking for consistency, because I was real weird about all that kind of stuff. I wanted everything. I had enough going on in my head. I wanted the same plane. They kept switching the plane, even if it was a mildly different 172. If the tack was over here, or stuff like that would just throw me off. I wanted the same plane, same instructor, stay on the plan, do the thing. That was my learning style. That was my need. But I think that for a lot of people, and probably for myself, I mean, I didn't fly with anybody else until my check ride. And so it was kind of a jarring thing all of a sudden to have a different type of, just a different human in the plane with me. Um, so I think that anybody that switches, it's probably an advantageous thing as far as, when to do it or why. I mean, the thing I was telling my friends earlier is both of them is I said, look, they kind of feel like they're maybe getting stuck with different people that they're having to sort of deal with, or I guess this is my instructor now. And I'm like, no, no, no. You own your training. It is your responsibility to own your own training. And so if they are giving you somebody that you don't really want to work with, or you're just not even sure, you just want to keep, playing the field or whatever, I mean, do that. But just this shift, I think, especially is hard and for earlier stage pilot training, to really take ownership, to not just feel like you're resigned to the process and it's just going to be whatever it's going to be. And I'm just happy to be here. It's more like you're paying a ton of money. These people work for you and you need to be getting results and consistency or whatever it is that you need. And you need to get somebody that you're comfortable with. So if you're switching to CFIs, great. That means you're owning your process.
That's good. I spent most of my training with one, but I did do a couple mock check ride flights with another, and they were beneficial. I felt, like you say, I mean, different experience. I do wish I had maybe spent a little bit more time on training in more than one airplane. I mean, I different people work different ways, like you say, and maybe it's too much to mix in at that stage. But it was definitely shocking to get out of all my time in the 172, and then the very next plane was the 235, and it was like I have no time in anything else. It was kind of like, it was a pretty big thing. So I think there's something to be said for that too. But you're right. It's your training. Like, don't just go along with what they want you to do. I mean, in terms of kind of jerking you around between planes and instructors or whatever, like, it's your cash. Like, you should get what you want out of it for sure. Here's a question. I love this. Here's a, George Jocelyn. Here's a question. What 71-year-old guy passed his PPL check ride last Thursday? Huh?
That's
How
awesome.
awesome is that?
Wow.
Congrats, George. 71. That is incredible. In fact, when we landed at Currituck County tonight, we were trying to figure out where they like transient airplanes to park. Like some places have preference of like, there's like flight school planes and then there's whatever or whatever. So we saw a guy who had just come in his 172 walking towards the FBO, and as I was fueling, I yelled over to him. I said, "Hey, are you local? Are you local here?" And this guy, he's probably 60, mid to late 60s. He said, "Oh," he said, "Yeah, I mean, I'm just a student pilot. I just started soloing. I've just been on my solo flights." And I said, "Good for you." Like I said, I got my certificate like a year and a half ago. And so we talked for a minute, but I said, it's never too late. Never too late. So he was soloing. He was out soloing tonight for like one of his first solo, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
wow. That's awesome. Well, congrats, George. That's really something at any age.
Bearded Aviator, here's something. Thank you, Brian, for the crash course on editing. You the man. And one Dog Geek replies with crash course on editing. I like this. Funny, you should mention that
Hmm.
because I guess this is promotional time because in 2 weeks on the podcast, which will be at normal time on Wednesday, March the 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. That episode is all about how we make YouTube videos. So I think the plan is I have one that I'm going to release actually for patrons only because it's just more of me flying the pattern in Clarksburg. So it's a free bonus for patrons.
Wait,
We're,
you have a Patreon?
oh, you didn't know that? Patreon.com/midlifepilot.
Oh, wait, I think I'm actually a.
You
Oh,
are?
that's where all my money goes.
Maybe
Well,
an
everybody else should
OG.
do this too, right? How do you
It's
do that?
well, you just go to patreon.com/midlifepilot and it's all right there. Perks and more and
Oh,
fun stuff. And yeah, anyway,
clearly, all these people, though, by the way, are patrons, right? Everybody in here.
there are some in here, yes, that are.
Okay. All
Uh,
right.
but anyway, that's going to be a whole episode, a podcast episode dedicated to kind of the workflow of the edit and how we do it. So I'm gonna work through a whole process of like importing the files and bringing the audio in and like how I set up my timeline and blah blah blah. So it should be, if you're interested in that kind of thing.
I have a
Uh,
question.
yeah,
I have a question over here.
go ahead. Yes, yes,
Um,
young man with the hand.
Thank you. Are you going to be using, or what video software editing platform are you going to be using?
I'm going to be using Apple's Final Cut Pro.
Okay. Now, you'll do it on a level where it's not going to necessarily matter which software people use. It's going to be, I mean, there might be some specific things, but generally there's a lot of commonality between all of them, so they don't need to feel left out if they use, I don't know, say DaVinci Resolve or Premiere.
That's right. I mean, there are principles will apply across the board. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Q&A continues.
Oh, Ross's check ride is Wednesday. That's pretty exciting. Wait, what day is today? Oh, so we do a week from today.
Today's Wednesday, yeah, next Wednesday.
That's
I'm
cool. You'll
scrolling
do
back.
great. You'll do great, and then if you don't do great, you'll still have the opportunity to do great, and then you'll do great.
All right, let's rapid fire some of these because there are a ton. There are a ton of good questions in here.
All right.
All right, not a question. George goes to Duck every year. Drove through Duck tonight. It's the speed trap of the Outer Banks. It's the speed trap of the Outer Banks. You gotta take your time through there. It's 25. They will get you. Ross asks, "What airports do you guys fly out of?" He's in Pensacola. I fly out of Fort Gulf 7. That's Fairmont Municipal Airport in Fairmont, West Virginia. Brian?
I fly out of KJWN here in Nashville, or I fly a club plane that's based out of KBGF in Winchester, Tennessee. It's about an hour and 20 minutes drive south of here. So, but essentially Middle Tennessee.
Very cool. We're going to apply this to both people. Ben Singer asked, Midlife Pilot, what is your next goal in aviation? That is an excellent question. I think instrument rating for me, truthfully, is probably the next thing. I know it's something that we've been talking about. I've been wanting to start doing. Started down the road, did not get started, but I need to do it. It's on my 2022 list for sure. My long-term goal, I've said before, I think on this podcast, is to just by the time I'm retired, have my CFI and just teach in retirement is kind of what I would like to do. Fly around and not like a lot either, not like teach 40 hours a week, like a student here and there, right? And just have something to do. Yeah. What about you? In fact, I know, Brian, I know what you're working on because you sent me a text about it today or yesterday.
I did?
Didn't you?
What did I say? I must have been drunk texting you again. No, I have started on my instrument knowledge portion. I'm about a third done with all that material.
Yeah, that's what you
And
said.
yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm starting on my instrument, but my goal is essentially just to get the written done in a reasonable amount of time and then put a 2-year timer on myself to get the rest of it done without it feeling like I'm hurrying or whatever, because honestly, paying for it is going to be a nightmare. So, in the meantime, I'm just flying cross country as much as I can, just still getting comfortable. I mean, I've only got 109 hours and I still, every single time I fly, I'm still always getting so much out of it. It's not like, oh, this is a great line, by the way. I'm gonna have to use this in something. A friend of mine who's an Airbus pilot, he he was telling me, get your instrument rating, which I agree with, but he said the way he phrased it was so good. He said, yeah, he said, do that instead of recreational gas burning.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So that's my goal, is to stop, to eventually put an end to recreational gas burning.
Awesome. All right, here comes one.
Mm.
I don't know why this is taking so long to refresh for me. I apologize for the delay. You guys seeing that? Flying Iowa asks, Brian Siskind, how much time do you take to set up all your cameras each flight? How do you deal with battery life?
Mm. Well, I don't do as well as Chris does because I don't have the fancy battery packs. I'm not hooking anything power wise. So it's okay. First question: how much time do you take to set up all your video cameras? I what I did was, and we talked about this in our episode that we talked about a lot of these topics, but I um I started from the very beginning, from lesson number 1, using GoPros and then just adding them as I went, so that it was part of my process and part of my just normal routine, and it never felt like all this, because what I didn't want to do is, by the time I get to my solo, all of a sudden have all these, things to do that I don't normally do. I wanted it to be part of my habit from the very beginning. So I did that. So in terms of how much time, it probably takes me less than 5 minutes to get everything set up. I mean, but that's also doing pre-work ahead of time, formatting everything properly, setting up everything so where it's all very well thought out ahead of time, just like anything else. It'll take you less time if you do pre-production. So less than 5 minutes to set up the cameras. And then as far as how I manage battery life on the longer flights, I basically just, any cameras I put outside, they're just going to burn, and they'll go out when they go out. And then I try to, depending on how much I want to capture or what I'm trying to capture, I'll give the cameras inside a break. But I
Mhm.
get about an hour. But honestly, where I'm at now, I'm like, I don't want to come back home and have more than an hour of footage
No, you
of
don't.
anything anyway. So
I have
hopefully that
about
answers your question.
I have about 4 cameras worth of 2 hours and 40 minutes of footage from today.
Mhm.
Uh, Unfortunately, the audience will be shocked to find I have audio from about the first 18 minutes. So, we got some work to do compiling that with, like, flights that I'm taking on Sunday, and so it's
Yeah.
gonna be yeah. Anyway, we can get into that another time. Takes me a little bit longer than that. I know we're just kinda jumping on each other's
Yeah.
questions, but it
Yeah.
takes me probably 20 minutes to get them ready, but I do the same thing you do. Like, I have them they're all pre-charged. They're all kind of ready. I got to put them in their mounts and stuff, and then affix the mounts how I want them. And hook up my audio recorder and whatever else I'm going to do with
You have
that.
more things. I
There's
have
just a couple more,
I have
not very
5
many
I
more,
have
but a couple.
5 cameras, but I'm not doing any extra audio recording or anything. I mean, I get the comm audio, but I'm just plugging the thing in, and yeah.
Good,
So
good, good.
anything you do a lot, you'll be able to do easier and faster.
Yep. Mark asks, here's my question. I just got my private on January
Mhm.
27th. Okay. That's
Alright.
awesome. And I haven't flown since. Well, it's only, I mean, it's like 2.5 weeks. How long was it after your check ride before you took your official flight as a pilot? In fairness, that is, it's also winter. I don't know where you live, Mark, or did he tell us earlier? Was he in Pensacola? Winter is a hard season to consistently fly. I think in a lot of places throughout the United States. So that could be part of it. I got my certificate on is that right? September 1st of 2020. And I think I took my first flight as a private. Well, I mean, as soon as my check ride was over, I flew the plane back to Fairmont, if that counts. That was like a 15-minute flight. And then I think the very next weekend, I took my friend Kevin to Elkins. So it was probably a week. It was a week probably
Yeah,
after
and I
my.
kinda I kinda feel like that in that question, there's sort of like I think we both understand, kind of, there's an undercurrent of, it's a little bit strange to all of a sudden turn the corner in your head between being a student pilot and now just going to go fly. There's the questions of, I don't know, once you're out on your own, there's a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome you have with training, and it's like, oh wait, what, you've been burning it so hard just trying to pass your check ride that by the time you get out, you have to take pause for a minute. I just went. I think I went the next day or the day after. I didn't wait very long, and then I think I did um, a flight on my own, and then the next day or day after that, took my wife up for a flight. And the idea was, there was not really any objective or anything. It was just, it's kind of amazing. As much as people really quickly moved to this idea that flying is boring, mid-flight cruising is boring. To me, I can't believe that it's happening every millisecond that I'm flying. I consider it just a freakish miracle that I'm able to do this legally and with some competence. And so I'm still riding on that. So just get out there and don't have a big objective about it, and just fly if you have any hesitation about it. And don't let the time go by, like get out there if you can, because um it's amazing how fast stuff will get away from you when you haven't had enough time to fully ingrain all of those things. So I wouldn't
Right.
go more than a few weeks if you can help it. But
Yeah, for sure.
you'll be fine.
Feel how many hours do you have it until you do your first solo? And I'm assuming that's addressed to like us specifically. There are no rules. I mean, if the question is about the rules, there are no rules. And it's also not Felix, is it? It's Phoenix. I'm seeing that from here. There are no. I mean, you could solo as long as you've met the criteria that your instructor has to set up for you. Take the pre-solo, whatever those handful of requirements are. I soloed at 9 hours of total time. Um, I was not at a flight school. I had a private instructor and a private plane, and that sometimes speeds those things along a little bit, maybe.
Also, a quiet
I forget.
airport.
Quiet airport, not busy. Exactly. There were a lot of factors that kind of went into that for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I soloed at 25 hours. I probably could have soloed around 20 or 21, but it was the kind of thing where I would do really well for a couple of lessons, and then I'd start to kind of get the sort of warnings, kind of from my instructor, and then I'd just do terribly. Towards the end of a
Right.
lesson, he's looking for finishing a whole lesson strong, with unassisted landings and all that. And I just didn't have the consistency yet. And honestly, even if he said, I think you're ready, I would have been like, I don't think so. I,
Right.
I wanted a little bit more time. But anyway, so yeah,
I,
25 hours. And
yeah.
um, it's, uh, my airport pretty darn busy. And, it took me a minute, I think, to get those things. It took me a minute to learn how
Yeah.
to land well.
All right. Keep those questions. I've got more here. I'm just a reminder. Keep the questions coming if you're with us in chat. We have 27 minutes left that we can answer
Wait,
these.
isn't
We
there like
still
a
have.
there's a super chat, isn't there?
Does that work in? Will we see that in Restream?
People can click on the dollar sign thing, right?
Certainly. I mean, that's always appreciated. I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna. I appreciate you doing the legwork of being that guy, but that's great.
I'll be that guy.
You be that guy if you want to. Here's a good one. Here's a good one. Johnny McClung. Did anyone have issues with getting their medical certificate? Sleep apnea is delaying mine. Good
Mm,
thing I started that part early. I'm not going to in a public forum like this. I could talk to you for an entire hour about the medical process and what a crock of crap it is. Um, I I'll say this um, philosophically, I don't have a problem with this concept of medically qualifying people to operate airplanes like this. I don't have a problem with the concept of not everybody can just do it because I do think there's greater public safety. I mean, we're talking about 1,000-pound machines overhead. Like there is a public safety consideration here. However, as much as they want you to believe that they are your advocates at the aerospace medicine group or whatever they call themselves, I'm not so sure that they are our advocates. After my experience getting mine, I had a problem with mine for things that were silly that led to other things that were silly, and I ended up writing back a really tongue-in-cheek, terse letter the last time when they asked for more information on it devolved from whatever the original issue was into we also saw in your medical history once that you had a um, prescription cream one time for scalp psoriasis like 7 years ago. We need more information from your dermatologist, including a full dermatological workup, blah blah, before we'll issue your third class medical. I was so no problem. I mean, I just went to my dermatologist who I see once a year for a skin check, but and said they're asking for this, and they said because of that. I said don't ask them questions. There's no logic. And I basically sent them a letter with what they asked for, and I said in the letter, is there anything else I could provide you all with? A stool sample, perhaps, tongue in cheek. But my point is, what else do you want from me? What else can I show you about my? I mean, it was ludicrous. What did that have? What did it have to do with my third class medical? Right. So anyway, uh, I don't have they don't sit in super high regard with me, as a general rule. And some of the challenges are legit. I understand. Sleep apnea is such a common thing, but also untreated. I don't know. I don't know what you're going through with it, but it's I just know that some of the processes are potentially maybe over rigorous, that they ask of pilots. What about you, Brian? Do
Ultimately,
you have any?
you got to do what you got to do. I mean, so stay with it and play the game and do whatever it takes and don't get discouraged. I would say that. Um, I got I
I stayed with it, and mine came out fine. I ended up losing my provisional or whatever they call this at, where you have to get rechecked every year. I'm just on a normal, like everybody else now, third class. So I eventually got over it as well. But it took me. I mean, it was a couple years. I never had one revoked or didn't have one, but it was there was a lot of work to do to keep it. Now it seems like it's settled down, and now I'm very seriously this next time. Mine's up in April. I'm considering just going basic med now and forgetting about it.
I will
So,
definitely do basic med.
and I'm going to do it with my AME. I'm not doing it with my regular physician. There's another good practice that old season pilots have told me forever. Keep your flying doctor and your other doctors as isolated as you can. That's all I'm saying about that. But there's value maybe in having some separation there. Is all I'll say about
All
that.
right. Well, good answers.
Let's see. Oh, Johnny again. We're gonna have a Johnny. Why do you fly patterns at Clarksburg and not Fairmont? It's a question for me because people see that all the time. I take off out of Fairmont, do all my work at Clarksburg. Notes. The real reason is because specifically in the Skyhawk, because of the length of the runway and the obstacle at the end, we don't do touch and goes in that airplane there, and because of the low power of that machine. So it's just a time factor for me. Like I can get way more laps in the pattern done at Clarksburg doing touch and goes than I can having to full stop taxi back every time at Fairmont. That's really the only reason, just for ease of getting more landings in per hour by going somewhere else.
LPH.
Are you interested in answering a question about your tattoo?
Sure. I don't care. Which one? No, I'm just
Uh,
kidding. Just one.
what what is there more than one? Can we
No, it's
learn more
just
about
one.
that? Why do you have a 14 tattoo on your wrist?
It is not a 14. It is an M. It's just kind of a letter M. That is my sister. She has my initial on her wrist, and I have her initial on my wrist.
Very cool. The more you know. Andy Huggins. Let me tell you about Andy Huggins. We've talked about him once on this podcast. It might have been before it was, or maybe it was on one of my live streams. I wore a hat. Andy Huggins is making merch, aviation themed merch. He has been a long time, and I mean long time patron of the channel and a supporter from the very beginning, who I think has a check ride coming up here soon, which is probably part of the reasons this question. I'll put a link. Remind me, Brian, will you? I want to put a link to his
Yeah.
merch store again. I have a T-shirt and a hat from him, and I love them both. Um, for those who pass their check ride, how do you deal with check ride anxiety? That is a good question, and when someone can figure it out, they'll be wealthy. I don't know. I'll tell
You
you
do
what I would
remember
tell.
you do remember we did a whole episode on this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it was. I'll recap it like this for mine. I
Yeah.
wish someone had told me. I wish I had believed people before when they tell me that it's like taking your first passenger. It's treat every flight like I wish I had approached my training and my check ride a little differently. And I did once the check ride started. It was a fantastic experience. Like we had a great time and it was cool to fly with somebody new, and your mileage may vary. I know I understand there's a wide range of DPEs as well that have different personalities and different approaches to the check ride. I think I got pretty fortunate. Mine was about as chill and had a real good time and was super intentional about putting me at ease. Like he could tell he was concerned for my mental well-being and just making sure that I wasn't stressed. And um, but if you're, I think, this is cliche and everybody says it. If your CFI has signed you off and has sent you for your check ride, you take some comfort in knowing that you're probably prepared for that, because they also don't want failures. I mean, they don't want people to fail. So it's, and the other thing is to not look at failure as a failure. I mean, it doesn't go on your permanent record. Nobody knows how many times had to do it. If you mess up a part, you can do it again. And so failure is not the end of your journey. I mean, even if something doesn't go right, it's not a one and done, or even a one and do the whole thing again situation. If you do everything right and fail the last landing, I know a patron who did something similar and went back for the next week with the DPE. They had to do one lap in the local pattern and they got a certificate the week later. So it's not a one and done thing. Know that you're ready. Trust your CFI that they've sent you and prepared you, and enjoy, like we talked about earlier, the value of flying with someone else with different experiences. Just enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
my advice.
I always just, for me, it's just about how it's framed mentally. To me, I just reframed it in my mind to be kind of a place of gratitude about it. Like, I'm so lucky to be able to do this. I'm just going to do the best I can, and I'm going to look at this as have an experience that I can have versus this I'm, doomed to, fail or succeed or whatever those kind of considerations are. It's more like I'm going to have an experience and I'm going to frame it as a positive one and then let the chips fall where they may.
That's excellent. Here's another great question. Speaking of midlifers, from Indiana Penny, how about glasses used by flying midlifers? Do you all use bifocals, contacts, readers, all different kinds, etc.? That's an interesting one because I am. Wait, which way is it? I can see close up but not far away. I'm nearsighted. Is that true? Is that the correct? I never
No one
remember which
no one
way it
really
is.
knows.
Okay, I can see up close. Like I can see like super close, but not distant. That's been my problem. I only in the last year or two have I started to realize, man, like I need more light to read this thing, or like I'm having a real hard time with this text. So that has started to come up with me. So what we did, I actually did something with my ophthalmologist. So you may see in my videos I wear aviators. Those are prescription. I had prescription sunglasses made. Don't tell anybody, they're polarized. Um, uh, that's like a taboo in the aviation field. I can still read all my screens, like blah blah. Anyway, um, but we made a separate prescription for those that are different than my everyday glasses, and they are slightly more tuned for distant vision. These we've had to start making some sacrifice because I'm not ready for bifocals quite yet. So we've made that sacrifice to like slightly improve my reading at a slight take away from my distant vision. So we
Mm,
made the conscious decision to fix my distant vision in the sunglasses.
mm.
I don't know what I'm going to do when we cross the point where I can't read, where I have a harder time reading up close. I think, I mean, I probably will have to end up with bifocals in the plane. Is probably what will happen. You can do that with sunglasses too, though. I mean, you can do that with prescription sunglasses.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I haven't crossed that bridge yet where I've needed that with multiple glasses.
I have progressives. Um, and it's actually kind of worked out nice. The Ray-Bans that I have that are prescription, they kind of screwed them up where the sort of the progression happens a little bit too late to convert to distance. So if I'm driving with them, I kind of have to make sure my head is kind of up. Whereas in the plane, it's perfect because it's almost like 2/3 close up and 1/3 far away. So I've got a really clear everything in the cockpit. I can see very clearly, but I can still see far away. But it's funny. But anyway, yeah, progressive, just whatever lenses and not polarized because let's be sane here.
It was not on purpose. That it was an accident that I ended up with polarized, but I'd spent so much on them. I was like, that's going to have to wait till the next prescription. I mean, that's going to be a different when we
Yeah, yeah,
change prescriptions. We'll solve that.
yeah.
Um, Ben Singer says, for me and
Mm.
you, what's the one airport you want to land at? Is there one? More than all the others. That's a good question.
Hmm.
You
It
know, I
seems
don't
like a
know.
lot of people have a ready-made answer for this. I don't really have a ready-made answer for it. I mean, there's a few that I have my eyes on that I just think would be cool. There's like the Dauphin Island, which is not terribly far from here that I could do. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. I don't know. I don't really have one. Hopefully, hopefully, the one I'm choosing to land at.
I'm scrolling through. Michael Young is here. Hey, Michael. Are you starting your instrument rating training? We did actually say something about that. But Brian started his kind of the book work third of the way through, so I haven't done anything yet. But that is on the that's on the plan. A lot of people in the chat right now are agreeing basic med, um, basic med, basic med, basic med. Um, can you use progressive lenses instead of bifocals? Yes, you absolutely can.
This
I've
has
known
really
a
turned
lady.
into like midlife jams, right? It's like,
Can you see what kind of
can I
glasses?
can I pass a medical? What if I can't see?
What if you have to pee? I mean, how do you hold it for 2 hours in the airplane? Like it's we have kind of turned into that somehow.
This is legit.
I'm telling
Hey, real quick, um, nobody's put any super chats in there, so I guess it's not working, or people just really don't want to spend their money on elevating their question. Well, that's fine, but I will say that I do have 3 videos that I put out this week.
you. They were great. I enjoyed every one of them.
Awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, three videos 1 week. I'm starting to turn the corner from the sort of documenting of training and flights to now sort of being able to actually take time to reflect on some things that I've been meaning to for a while.
Oh, here's a great question. I was dying to answer this question. Johnny McClung says, "Is it a bad idea to use a CFI that just completed his certification?" I love this question. I love this question uh, because my opinion has changed on it over the years. No, I don't think so at all. And I'll tell you why. Um, can you imagine these kids that are flying in these schools right now? Most of these kids, like the CFIs that I know that have just got their tickets, are working towards airline jobs. Ultimately, this is the logical progression for them. This is how it works. They get their ticket, they teach and build their hours, and then they go to the airlines. These kids are flying airplanes every day. Building time all the time. They're in the airplanes every day. Um, Fresh material. They know their stuff. They're I don't know. To me, that's who I want to learn from. I want to learn from these folks who are just living and breathing it. Now, there's definitely something to be said for the old seasoned pilot who's got 50,000 hours and has seen everything. Most of his 50,000 hours aren't in the 172 that you're training in. There's a lot of his time that is not relevant to you. Truthfully, I mean, it's different, entirely different ball game. But I've had nothing but great experience with the young kids who've come out. I think they've all served me very well, and I don't have any. I would jump at the chance to fly with these kids who are flying airplanes every day. Um, I just think it's so fresh to them, and they're eating and sleeping, flying at that stage of their life, and I think they can pass it on to you as long as your personalities jive and you can work with them. That's my take.
But what if
Did
it's
you?
just like what if it's a guy that just got his CFI and he's called the midlife pilot and he said I just want to kind of do it occasionally, not a lot. I have a beach house and I just want to sometimes do it at the beach, but then sometimes I don't. I just want to maybe have 1 or 2 students and just kind of when I feel like
Now,
it. Is that the instructor that we should get?
now, ask me that in 20 years. My answer will probably have changed some. I might say yes, and I'll tell you why. Because my time, zero of my hours by that time will have been in an airline environment. Like they're all going to have been in GA aircraft and like kind of at the private level, right? I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good question.
Relevant.
That's
Yeah,
a fair
relevant.
question. Um, and I see what you did there, counselor. And
Yeah.
sustained
Should I go with
is.
the guy who's phoning it in for ice cream money? You know?
Yeah, Michael Young. Yep. I was my CFI's first student, and I thought it was great. He came from ATP and had so much knowledge because it's all fresh to him. So, you guys remember Tyler Lucas from my channel, who was my instructor. I was not his first student. He was teaching at Fairmont State already, um, this local school here. But I was his first non-flight school student. So what was that, part 61? So outside of the flight school environment. And it was the same kind of deal. Like he was just all over it, and he enjoyed flying those. That's he was working towards the airline, but he still like he bought us a Tabria. Like he loves flying these little planes. This is the fun flying for him.
I mean, yeah, ultimately it comes down to who cares about their experience. It's just about whether you click with them, whether it's the right situation. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to just write off people because they're this or they're that.
I'm trying to find something for you guys real quick. Quick Brian fill time.
Has anybody figured out the super chat?
Yeah, they did. We got a
Look at
couple.
this. What?
We got a couple. You did it.
I did it. Oh
We'll,
my
we'll shout
God.
out. We'll shout out to him here in a second.
Okay, so now I just got to get 500 more subs on my channel, and then I'll just have nothing but super chat.
Well,
This would be
thank you
great.
to One Dog Geek and Ben Singer both for the
Yeah, that's really great. That's really great.
for
I
the
mean,
virtual tip jar, as it were.
yeah, it's like, hey, thank you. Can we be like the kind of people that are like, hey, thanks for the $1. Oh, hey, thanks for the $5.
No, I don't think we are. I don't know what's gotten into you tonight, but I'm gonna have to start keeping my finger over here on the mute button a little closer. Um, I will say, here's the effort that I made. I knew we were supposed to record this night. It's my fault that we were late because like things
Mm.
never go quite as planned at the airport when you land somewhere else. And like there's a storm coming tomorrow, so I was like, I have to put 152's like baby coat on her that she wears when she's outside of a hangar. Anyway, so I brought all this stuff to do this here. So as you've seen, I've switched camera angles. The distinct viewer will have noticed that the camera switched midway through this podcast. That's because the battery in the camera that I brought was dead. Also, I'm holding my fancy microphone today because I did bring a mic stand, but it's unable to effectively mate with the microphone that I brought. So you can appreciate the effort that we put in to produce this high quality content for you every other week. So that's why we really appreciate the
Yeah,
support.
and I feel like a jerk because Ben was actually just saying, "Great videos, Brian," and $5. So, I apologize. So thank you, Ben, a lot, and Mr. Dull Geek as always. So anyway, but yes, back to you, Mr. Sinatra.
Here we go. Indiana question: how do those CFIs set their rates? Always wondered that. I think if you're not at a flight school, if you're just working with independents, I think it is completely whatever they decide they want to do, and which is fine. I mean, that's their time, and people like everything else in life. It's things are worth what people are willing to pay for them, and I believe that. I'm not. That's not facetious. I'm saying like the valuation of a thing, whether it's time or material, is what someone else will pay for it. That is its value. So I think people just set them based on what their time is worth to them and how they want to do it. I think.
I'm pretty
Johnny
sure that
McClung,
flight schools take a large proportion. I want
I think so.
to I want to say maybe even half, but I don't know that for sure, and I can't speak to that.
Did you use online ground school, and which do you recommend? I can give you my short list. I did. I used Sporty for my private. I used Sporty's course, and I used Russ Still's Gold Seal Aviation. and I thought both of them were really good. Since then, I have looked at a lot of other content. I mean, my daughter's talking about getting her certificate, and I've met a lot of people through connections, and so I've got a chance to see some other people's content. And I know that I've talked about Chris Palmer before, Angle of Attack. He's making some good stuff. Angleofattack.com is his site. Um, what else is out there? There's a ton. I mean, there's just so
Finer
many
points.
things. Yeah, if you want to just the finer points, I think is one of the um, uh, I think he is one of the best online YouTube instructors. I mean, he's got his own curriculum like you're looking for as well, but also his channel. I just think he's an expert teacher. I really enjoy his video.
Yeah, I used all sporties the whole time and nothing else. But you know, there's definitely better things for some people, and I don't know. I just at the time I just didn't know enough. I was just like, well, I just want to have the standard. Give me just the normal, undeniable thing, and I did like that it. Uh, One thing that might be worth checking, depending on who you're training with or what the school is. My school had just converted everything to a sporties back end kind of curriculum management, learning management system type of thing that my student package kind of just plugged into. And so then I had sort of uh, I could do the endorsement and I could do all the, syllabus and the monitor my own progress, and with the actual flight hours and everything was a little bit more integrated seemingly. And so I did like that.
Cool. Um, yeah, that's pretty good. That covered a gamut of things here.
Yeah. I want to know did you have any challenges at all flying today, or was it just all easy peasy, or did you learn anything?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I think uh, the recap, we left in conditions that were less than ideal. Had thoughts about not going. I mean, when you're standing at the hangar and like it's that the wind that's blowing by that makes it hard to hear. It's like there's so much air, and you look at the windsock and it is like s- straight out and like tensely out, and the flags are ripping, and it's like I don't know. I mean, um, I'm glad we didn't cancel, because it's always good. We just had to get off the airport. That's all we had to do, and you just practice the crosswind correction you were taught, and
Yeah.
keep your controls right. You stay over the runway, and then the rest of the flight was smooth sailing. We made a decision to go to uh, 9,500 instead of 7,500. We had to cross mountains, and there was I think the wind mass we were in. I mean, the winds aloft at 7 or 9,000 feet. I think they were, I don't know, 50 knots, or they were, I don't know, 40 to 50 knots. So it wasn't insignificant hitting those mountain peaks, and we just didn't want to deal with any of the turbulence from that. And so that was a good call, because 95 was, you couldn't tell you were even crossing the mountain range.
Yeah.
I think at 75 you probably would have. So I think that was a good
How
call.
did Cecilia do?
Great, like a
Cool.
um, she braced herself, like because I'd warned her ahead of time, because I don't want to surprise people with that stuff. I said, this is going to
Mhm.
be, this has the potential to be probably as rough as we've been, in. So just know that that's coming for the first 5 minutes, and then we're going to be good. But then it wasn't, and I said, oh, I didn't mean to scare you. She said, well, I'd rather know than be surprised by it. So no, it was good. People were asking. I took the 235. Here's a quick. Actually, I have a clip, Brian, now that you asked about it. This is just a quick iPhone clip from our flight today. Once we were in cruise. This is near Elkins, over the eastern West Virginia mountains.
Nice. Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of a look inside the 235. Um,
So you said Cecilia's a step closer to considering starting training?
yeah, it's a hard time though. Like, she's also working on figuring out college, and like
College, come on.
yeah, it's just there's a lot to think about. So I don't want to monopolize her time if she doesn't want to spend it on it, and so
Yeah, oh yeah. It's definitely one of those things where there's a lot of people I think that are interested in it and have the capability to do it for sure, but there's definitely another. I'm seeing this with some friends of mine that are training that they love it and they're very interested and they've been going at it, but man, that level of commitment that it takes to really do it in any kind of a reasonable amount of time and to really own the process and to really not feel like you're phoning it in or whatever and taking too long. I mean, anybody that commits to
right,
doing it, I really respect because uh, it's a hard thing to do. And so for anybody that's got a lot of stuff going on, it's a fine line between making excuses not to do something that you really want to do because you just have your
that's right,
doubts versus like, I'm just going to do this at a smart time.
that's right. No, it's definitely a commitment. I mean, it's a time commitment and a money commitment and just a. I'm trying to show a clip of, and then I'll stop showing clips because we do still have a video to make of this. But this is the um, this is how cool the approach into this airport is. So this is a look at. Sorry for those of you listening to the audio portion. Viewers are seeing a look inside the cockpit of the 235. That's downwind to base, out kind of over the heading out over the sound.
Perfect light.
And oh man, it was sunset. You know what I mean? It was like right about sunset time, and like Cecilia got her phone out. 'Cause she's like, "Oh, I've got a video of this." Like, so anyway, the base leg is kind of out over the sound. Then you turn final, and it's just over some like marshy area and some trees. This is KONX um, Kuratech Regional, an untowered field with 150-foot wide runway, 5,500 feet long. Another reason that I think it's a great contender for us for our April fly-in.
Yeah.
The approach is just, I mean, it's super easy. It's out in the middle of nowhere. The funny thing about this airport is, and this I love this. It's on the airport diagram too. They show the runway, right? And you know how sometimes they'll put like landmark markings on the document so you can kind of see what it's around.
Yeah.
One side of it has this big like semicircle and it says landfill, and the other side says prison camp. So
Yeah.
the airport is between a prison camp and the landfill. So I thought, well,
Nice.
that nothing calls you in to like come visit us here next to the prison camp or the landfill, depending on what it
Or the
is you're.
bang up job by the Chamber of Commerce.
That's the end of that
Uh,
video.
I mean, honestly,
Actually, they
that's the
changed
same
clip.
actually, here at John Tune, that's what it is. There's basically, what I call Trash Mountain, just like the landfill, and then, the downwind is, right over a prison, so,
Last question,
yeah.
then we'll get off. Okay,
Yeah, man.
Ben Singer, good question to both of us.
Mm,
How did we come together for the podcast?
government
We probably
conspiracy.
told this story maybe on the it was yes on the we probably told this on the first episode. The podcast was Brian's idea. Brian was a we talked. He's a YouTube subscriber and a patron of mine, and then had an idea to do a podcast. And I said, "Well, I don't. I'll be bad at it because I don't have time. I mean, it's hard for me to even keep the stuff." And he said, "I'll do it. Uh, just do it. Will you do it with me?" And I said, "Sure." And so that was how I'm right. That's basically the origin story.
Pretty straight
And
ahead. It was a no-brainer. I feel like there's just also um I think that we saw an opportunity to do something, for people that were maybe in the same boat as we were that wasn't really being done. I mean, there's a lot of aviation content or whatever, but I mean, I feel like a lot of it is highly instructional or various things, and we just thought there was an opportunity to do something a little bit targeted and unique. And it's also kind of like, I don't know, like screw it, let's start a band kind of vibe. Maybe that's what we should do.
mm. Do you have your keyboard? Do you have your synth ready? No.
No, I mean, let's see. Uh,
I miss being played out. That was like the nicest.
I know, I know. Well, the problem too is I don't have the monitoring set up, but
Ah, some other
uh,
time.
hey, I played a lot of synth on my last video that I was happy
Hey,
with.
everyone should go to real quick. Seriously, we got to go then. But everyone
Yeah.
should go to thosedrones.com. I was on there the other day and found cassettes and records for sale
Mm,
of Brian's music,
it's true.
and I want to buy some vinyl, so I need to
Yeah,
do
if you
that.
want to, if people are into antiquated airplanes, they might also be into antiquated music media, of which I have those things. So yeah, it's all true,
Cool.
man. Thank you. That's a good plug. Um, and how are we gonna split the $6, Chris? And f
Well, I mean, five of it was directed. I mean, five of it was directed
ooh,
directly
gosh,
for
that's really
you.
true. Yeah, that's really
So,
true.
yep. So we will. I guess I'll take $1 and you can have five. We'll call it good.
Yeah, and Ben, I've been, thanks again for that. I would do wanna get down to, isn't Ben's airport the one that's either at or near this, Chop House?
Ooh, I think that's right. I
I
think
think
that's
that's right.
right.
Yeah, I'm flying, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll have the plane all weekend, so I've got a lot of adventures coming up. We're gonna go to Sewanee and, some other interesting locations and do some fun things. So, stoked about that. It's been a few weeks. Now I'm flying less frequently, but when I do fly, then it's full on for 2 or 3 days and then off, which I kinda like the immersion of it, and just kinda having a plane and being able to flow with what's going on. So,
Awesome.
pretty good. Are you gonna fly any while you're there other than just flying back?
We're going to do some, Cecilia and I at least. There's some question whether anyone else will go with us on Sunday to see just some beach sites, but we are going to make a loop. We're going to do some beachy, low level, beachy, scary things before we head out officially northwest bound. So, the low, like 1,000 feet or below, uh, up the ocean thing. So that's kind of fun and scary, but
Some
that's,
banner towing sans banner. That's good. I like it.
yeah.
Well, you guys have fun and be safe. And thanks everybody for all the questions and everything. Chris, why don't you go ahead and get us out of here?
Yep. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks where we will do editing videos. Should be exciting. So appreciate everyone's time and we'll talk to you next time.